You know, we often talk about the success of the 1970s Montreal Canadiens dynasty, but what we forget is that they basically did a reclamation project with three of the former high-end draft picks of the 1970s who were part of faltering WHA teams in 1978, and eventually all three played with the Habs in 1979. Now, we're going to talk about two players that are probably going to ring a bell, and a third, basically, kind of one of the biggest busts of he's in his NHL career. But Rod Langway, Mark Napier, and Cam Connor. Now, Rod Langway, to many people, it's a recognizable name. He ended up being the best defenseman in the NHL after Montreal traded him to Washington in the Rick Green, Ryan Walter trade. Now, Langway was drafted by the Habs in the 1977 entry draft, round 2, high pick, 36th overall. But the Bulls, the Baby Bulls, the Birmingham Bulls, took him as their first round pick, 6th overall in the 77 draft. He ended up playing in Birmingham in the 1978 season, counting 3 goals and 18 assists for 21 points. Now, when the Bulls franchise pretty well partially was looking to remove some contract, they did pick up a lot of underage juniors the next year. But Langway started playing with the Voyageurs, had an impressive total of 19 points in 18 games in the 79 season before being called up to Montreal, and he got a Stanley Cup ring. Very, very consistent defensive defenseman of his time. Don't know what he could have done in Montreal anymore. They did in Washington. He was only 40, 45 point a year guy. Strong defensive defenseman. Rick Green was a capable player just like him, so it was even up for that trade. We gave up too much for Ryan Walter, but I have great respect for Langway because all the years he played in the NHL, he was a bastion of the Capitals franchise, and he made that team legitimate after all those lean years. Now, the second person we're going to talk about is Mark Napier. Even though his recent machinations as part of the NHL executive I don't really respect, I'll give him what's due in relation to him playing in Montreal. Now, Napier was a number 1 pick of Montreal in that 77 draft, 10th overall, and after a really strong career with Toronto Marlboros, where his last season he had 130 points, including 66 goals. He went to the Toronto Toros and then the Birmingham Bulls, and as an underage player, and put up some really impressive numbers, especially in 1977, where he became one of the few players of his era to ever score 60 goals in a season, getting 96 points total in 80 games. By 78, again, with the Bulls were realigning some of their younger players, he ended up with Montreal and was a factor pretty well much more in the playoffs, got a Stanley Cup ring, and he scored that big goal against Boston in Game 7 of the semifinal series to bring Montreal back into that contest. Now, he did score 40 goals twice with Montreal, but eventually was passed on to the Stars, where Montreal was kind of trying to, concentrate on Bobby Smith as an addition, and he won 2 more cups he won 1 more cup in Edmonton. He was part of the Stanley Cup team in Edmonton '87 for a short while before moving on to Buffalo. Now, he also had a short tenure with the Canadian national team in '92, and but his totals were very impressive. He nearly scored 400 combined goals in 1,000 games with nearly 800 points, and again 18 goals in the playoffs. Don't want to get into much how he kind of abandoned his fellow players, but that's for a lawsuit for another time. Now, of the 3 WHA players that Montreal brought in, this guy was kind of a head scratcher because he put up some really consistent numbers in the WHA, because he was one of the Flin Flon Bombers products in '74, which Montreal noticed. He had 91 points with the former Bobby Clarke and Reggie Leach franchise, and 91 points in 65 games. went to the WHA for 4 total seasons, and his best year was in 1976-77, where he scored 35 goals and added 32 assists for 67 points. Now, by 77-78, the Arrows were basically nearing folding. He needed a future, and because he was a number 5 pick for Montreal, he still owned the rights. In Ken Dryden's The Game, it talks very much about Cam Connor, being very hopeful that his NHL career would be like his WHA career, but it didn't really pan out. Although he scored an overtime goal against Toronto in the playoffs in the quarterfinals in '79 and got his name on the cup, he was basically not a player that really felt at home, maybe playing with the Montreal Canadiens in the first year. And his future career in the NHL showed that. He had spot duty with Edmonton and Rangers in 1980, with the Rangers in '81. Played 2 full seasons in the minors before the Rangers called him up in '82 for the playoffs, which he had probably his most successful run, where he scored 4 goals. But he ended up, being a minor league pro for the rest of his career. We still don't know. Cam Connor had some skill, but for some reason, even playing with the Montreal Canadiens, he seemed, like I said, out of place. And the Rangers had a very similar system at the time regarding offense and power play production. But it's too bad. He put up strong numbers, even minor pro, with the New Haven Nighthawks. He had 61 points, including 33 goals in 1981. So it just shows that all 3 had some success in the WHA. Rod Langway was an overachiever, Mark Napier was an achiever, and Cam Connor was an underachiever like best. But you can say all 3 have a Stanley Cup ring. You can never take that away. Cam Connor had some skill, but Napier was a real deal. But Napier had physical problems, as we know, like with eyesight issues. And Rod Langway, basically, he wasn't what you call a big motivator on the bench or in the dressing room for Montreal, but he did have with Washington. I think Langway being, one of the top American players of all time. And of all things, he's probably the best player ever to be born in Taiwan. He was born in Mog, Taiwan, 1957. But at 6'3", 218, he had a presence on the ice that, and probably one of the best mustaches of the NHL besides Lanny McDonald in the mid '80s. So, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit of history of that 79 players that were on the cup, but I call it the WHA influence. And like I said, there wasn't too much publicity when all 3. I never saw any features in the Hockey News or Hockey Digest talking about the WHA incursion with the Montreal Canadiens. But Montreal tried a lot of players in the 1970s, including like Dave Lumley and Jeff Brubaker and a few others. And every Glenn Goldup, every partial player had talent, and we see this. But I don't know. It's a head scratcher about Cam Connor. Maybe he was out of shape. Maybe he was partying too much. There's always a reason behind a player doesn't meet his quality of play. So, ladies and gentlemen, on this COVID Saturday, we wish you a happy day. Stay safe. The NHL is coming back. And again, if you enjoy my podcast, give it a like, subscribe, or a comment. Tell your friends. And if you don't like it, don't tell nobody. Have a good day. Bye.